Welcome to this year's edition of the Q1 Buck Poll. I'm Tim Hart with Mike Big Buck Hoffner. Well, we had a great season in 2012, and Mike, we look for bigger and better things this year.
I'll tell you what, Tim, the EHD put a whooping stick on us, but I'm telling you, I've been out early this year. I've seen a lot of bucks. I've got my trail cameras out. The crops are in full force. It's going to be a good year.
Well, and I'm going to have the camera right next to you, so we should
so.
get some kills on camera this year. Well, on this week's show, we're going to feature some segments from last year's party. In particular, we've got some great comments and quotes from kids.
Yeah, you can never underestimate what comes out of the mouth of a kid. Been doing this education business for 38 years. God, I love them.
Also on this week's show, we've got Russ Mason. He's with the DNR. He's going to be talking about the EHD problem from last year, but he's also going to talk about the effects that it's going to have on this year's deer herd.
I'm looking for it to be a better year than last year.
Exactly. Well, we've had a good, cool, and kind of a wet summer, so not that dryness that caused the problems with EHD. And then finally on the show, we've got Tony the Pratt from Ultimate Land Management and the Whitetail Boot Camp. And Tony is going to talk about practicing with your bow the proper way so you're ready to get out in the woods and have success.
Yeah, you can't make that mistake. Some people wait till the day they go deer hunting to start zeroing it in. Man, months ahead of time, you got out there and you got to start shooting at those targets. And I've been doing it already myself, Tim. Got it 2 months under my belt, and I've been out there. I've gotten throwing darts.
So Big Buck Hoffner zeroed in, and you need to zero in too. We'll be back with more. You're watching the Q1 Buck Poll.
Firekeepers Casino and Hotel present the Q1 Buck Poll.
Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll, and you know, Mike, we had a lot of great stories at last year's final prize party.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a culmination to a whole year's of excitement. I'll tell you, people get fired up, and man, people in the state of Michigan, it makes you happy because they still love to deer hunt.
And they love to hear the stories. Here's a story from a gentleman whose last wish was to attend the final prize party of the Q1 Buck Poll.
We've got a special guest here tonight. Heart-touching story, I would say. Don Tryon, and his brother Chuck are here. And we want to talk to Don a little bit. Don, one of his last wishes for his life right now was to make it to the Q1 Buck Poll prize party this year. And Don has been a hunter for a long time. Don, how was your hunting this year?
Great.
So, what do you like most about being in the outdoors?
I just like being out there with the wildlife, and I've always wanted to shoot a big buck, and I did it this year.
Tell me about your hunt this year with the big buck. And Rob, if I could get you, I'm gonna pull back a little bit. If I could get you to jack my mic up a little bit, so we can hear Don about his hunt this year. Don, tell me about it.
I got I think it's Region 6 Midwest. It was number 6 in the region.
And how did the hunt go?
Oh, fantastic. The first time through I missed him, and I got him when he come back through again. What were you shooting at? 30-06.
And Don, how long have you been hunting?
Since I was able to. I don't remember the year, but...
And Don, being out in the woods, did you have help getting out in the woods this year, or how did that work? And your brother?
Yeah, my brother's my hunting buddy.
Well, brother, come on up here. I'm going to have you just kind of stand right in behind me. Tell me about taking your brother out and the experience you've had this year.
It was a joy to watch him get his big buck this year. It's probably the best thing I ever had in my life, to see him shoot this big 13-point buck. And watching the expression on his face when he's seen the deer go down.
Well, and it's something that a lot of families share here, and this is something that it's not always easy to get out in the woods. It's always great to have somebody help out, especially when it's your brother. And then the success you had this year. What was it like when you got up to see that buck?
Oh, it was great. I mean, can't describe it.
And you didn't want to miss the Big Buck Bowl prize party, did you?
No, I got out of the hospital yesterday, so I could be here today.
Let's give him a round of applause, folks.
Well, a great story, and we do appreciate them attending the final prize party. It was a lot of fun talking to them. Well, now, Mike, we need to talk about kids because, kids love to go out and hunt, and not always do they stay in school. They'd rather be out in the woods.
Yeah, well, I got to do this when that happens, Tim. But I guess it's what you call an excused absent this day and age.
Well, we have funny stories, and we have kids who skip school to go hunting.
I aimed and my grandpa, he holded it right here, and I aimed and fired.
Okay, so Grandpa helped you out. Have you been hunting with Grandpa before?
Yeah.
Do you like going hunting?
Yeah.
Is Grandpa a good helper?
Yeah.
But he don't move too quick. He didn't bring that deer up here for you, did he?
Nope.
All right, well, what did you think when you saw that big old deer coming out? You don't know? Didn't you get a little buck fever or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah? What'd that feel like?
Well, I was shaking.
Well, as you can tell, we had a great time at last year's final prize party. And Mike, Jerry Meyer from Attica won the ATV, and he was so excited. He said, Tim, I've been driving it out all over the woods. He called me, he's emailed me, and what a great deal, and it's always fun to win a prize like that.
It was cold. I think he drove it home.
Exactly right. Anyway, stay with us. Coming up, we've got Russ Mason from the DNR. He's going to talk about the EHD effects from last year and how they're going to affect this year's deer herd. You're watching the Q1 Buck Poll. We got more coming up. Time now for our sponsor spotlight. We're at Backwoods Bargain Outfitters on M37, just north of Bedford, here just outside of Battle Creek. Matt Coyle is with us. Matt, how are you doing today?
Good, Tim. How are you, buddy?
All right, you got a bow in your hands, and I know you guys specialize in archery. Let's talk a little bit about the shop here.
We specialize in archery, full line of bows from Bear, PSE, Prime, and Quest. Also do crossbows from 10 Point and Wicked Ridge. We do also have other little handful of mix and match crossbows, but 10 Point and Wicked Ridge are really our big names for crossbows.
And unlike some of the box stores, you've got a shooting range here that somebody can try the bow before they buy.
Yep. That's one of the things that sets us apart from the crowd, especially in this town and really all over, is we do a good job of keeping extra bows in stock so that you can shoot them and try them and see what you like before you buy it. We also have a full line of Easton arrows, crossbow bolts, really anything that you need for a vertical bow, compound bow, clothing and apparel, scent control products. If you need to go out in the outdoors and you're looking for a product, we've got it here at Backwoods. And the other nice thing about having the range is once we get you all set up, you can take a few minutes, get sighted in on the range. We can make sure everything's working right. We're not just setting you up a bow and putting it in your hands and you take it home, realize something's wrong with it or it's not shooting the way you'd like. In here you can jump right on the range, take 15-20 minutes. We make sure everything's working right, make sure everything's fitting you right. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, if you want to stay and use some of your own time, you can also get sighted in here. Mm-hmm. We've got a full 20-yard shot, so you can get your pins dialed right in so that you're not flinging arrows all over your backyard when you get home.
All right, so lots happening here at Backwoods Bargain Outfitters. Matt, thanks for being with us here on today's Spotlight.
Thanks a lot, Tim.
All right, I'm Tim Hart. You're watching the Q1 Buck Poll.
For the best deals around, Backwoods Bargain Outfitters, M37, Bedford.
Well, I don't know about your area, but in the southern part of Michigan, we got hit hard with EHD last year.
Yeah, really hard, Tim, but I'll tell you what, we are on the rebound. We had a really nice, cool season, probably the coolest and wettest ones I can ever remember living down here in Branch County, but I think that's going to cause us to come on a rebound.
Here's Russ Mason from the DNR. He's going to talk about the effects from last year and how it's going to affect this year's deer hunting. Time now for our DNR update. Tim Hart talking with Russ Mason. Russ, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Russ is the chief of the Wildlife Division for the DNR, and today we're going to talk about EHD and the effects it has on the 2013 season. 2012 was a rough year for a lot of different areas.
Mm-hmm. It was a little tough. We had EHD last summer. You recall we had that drought. and that drought actually is very good for the spread of EHD. It concentrates deers and biting flies in the same place, so it was a bad deal. The harvest was down in some places, up along the Maple River corridor, Ionia County, Branch County, Calhoun County, but in a very spotty way. We're responding to that by breaking up Area 486. Now you recall that's the one that basically is all of southern Michigan, which we created a couple of years ago to increase convenience. We're breaking that up so that we can look and try to move things around in terms of our harvest targets in response to things like EHD. But the other thing to know is that in southwest Michigan, our deer numbers have been going down a little bit year over year, which is a good thing. Our targets were to bring them down because we had too many deer. We're using automobile accidents. Folks will say, you pay attention to the insurance. And no, I don't pay attention to the insurances, but I'll tell you what, cars go the same speed 365 days a year. It's a pretty good metric how many deer there are. So we're doing that. We'll see what the commission has to say in terms of antlerless quotas and some of the other things that are moving forward, but we're interested. We don't think it has a long-term impact. We are going to be doing some studies in partnership with Safari Club International, looking at how long it takes for deer to recover in certain areas. I'm anticipating a pretty good season this year, provided that we continue to have the kind of summer that we're having now.
So what will this do to the 2013 season? Are you going to go, somebody can only harvest so many, like one buck? Are we going to limit the number of doe? Are you going to limit the number of doe that can be taken on private farms?
There may be something along those lines. I think that it might be that we have, 5 antlerless permits. We reduced it last year, you recall, in response to EHD. There won't be a change to the buck limit. In fact, a lot of those changes are kind of transparent anyway, because most Michigan hunters don't want more than 1 or 2 deer. And I can say, well, now you can't have 5. Well, okay, there are only like 3 guys that want 5. So I think we're fine, and I can anticipate that people once again are going to be seeing a pretty good season down here.
Now, are you getting a lot of feedback from hunters from last year? I know that not everybody, said, oh gosh, come on out, DNR, I got 30 dead deer on my land. Did you have a lot of feedback, though, from hunters so that you're able to pinpoint these problem areas?
Well, actually we did, and there was a lot of help that was given to us. Michigan United Conservation Clubs had groups out there, QDMA had groups out there, voluntary cooperatives had folks looking for us. What's different between us and all the other states that had EHD last year? 2 things. 1, we were looking for it in a very serious way, and 2, we have a strong veterinary, medical, wildlife health capacity in this state. I'm pretty sure that the EHD outbreak in Illinois or Indiana or Missouri or a lot of other states was as or more severe than what we had here. The difference was we knew what was going on because people were helping us, and those states didn't. In fact, they have kind of a bias not to look for some of these things some of the time.
Well, in talking about EHD, what are some of the signs and symptoms that hunters should look for, and do you think it's going to carry through to this 2013 season, or do you think we're past it?
Well, let's review what we know about EHD. To begin with, we've seen it just about every year for the last decade. It's a function of climate change. Our winters aren't as cold as they used to be, and the biting fly that is the vector for the disease overwinters better now in Michigan than it used to. The reason it was so severe last year is this fly breeds in mud. There was a lot of mud last year because things were drying up, so it was a perfect storm. And as you know, since deer actually kind of prefer muddy, warm water to clean water, they were going into where the flies were, so they were getting literally bit thousands of times and getting multiple doses of EHD. This year, if we have more water on the ground, there's a little less mud, frankly, it's going to be a better deal all the way around because there won't be quite as many flies. Last winter started out warm, but it got cold toward the end. That could help as well, but we'll just have to see. Again, it's a drought effect that we were looking at last year. We don't have drought, we won't have the kind of effects that we had last year.
Do you know if that affects anything to do with like the birth rates, especially also coming around, not just with EHD, but the cold winter that we had and the sustained winter that we had into this spring season?
Well, I think probably a bigger deal might just be those putting fawns where they wouldn't have otherwise put them this spring because they can't leave them in the woods because the woods are full of water. So we're asking people to be a little bit more careful when they're taking off that first cutting of alfalfa or doing a variety of things because it's possible that fawns are being dropped and hid in places that they wouldn't have otherwise been. No, that winter, it's an interesting thing because it was mild up till quite late. In the UP on the west side, they clearly are going to have some deer losses as a function of that winter. But even then, it didn't last all that long. So it's hard to say. Northern lower, a little severe, but we don't anticipate losses. And down here, of course, in southern Michigan, everything was pretty much like it always is, and we anticipate good reproduction. The EHD doesn't last, so it'll clear. If it didn't kill you, you're done. You're fine. And so the way this is going to work is everybody that made it through that EHD outbreak will have the same number of fawns that they ever did. In fact, with fewer deer on the landscape, there's more food for those does. It's entirely possible that they'll twin and be more successful than they were, say, a couple of years ago, where there was more competition for the resources, such as that exists in a high nutritional plain like southern Michigan.
If hunters have questions, can they just go to the DNR website, give somebody a call? How do I get more information?
Well, sure, you can go to our website. We've got stuff there. It's hard to find, but we're getting better all the time. But you can call any of our biologists. They're on the website, so call Flat River if you have a question on the west side. Call Rose Lake here. If you got a question in Central, call one of the places on the east side. We're more than willing to help and provide any information that we can, and as the summer progresses here, we're going to be putting out updates because I know people are thinking about this. We want to keep people up to speed so they know what to expect when they go to the woods next fall.
All right. Hey, Russ, thanks for being with us.
You bet. Thank you.
Chief of the Wildlife Division for the DNR, Russ Mason, has been with us. I'm Tim Hart, and you're watching the Q1 Buck Poll.
Back here on the Q1 Buck Poll, and Mike, a lot of people get ready for the season. They get their bow, they go out there, and they get all standing perfectly straight, and they got their shot, and it works. But one of the things that people need to be aware of, and that is checking your bow out and then also practicing like you're going to hunt.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a mental checklist you have to go through annually. Don't always assume when you take it out of the case that everything is A-OK. You got to go X, Y, Z, all the way through, all the way down to the final tips on shooting religiously almost every day to get fine-tuned.
Here's Tony LaPratte from Ultimate Land Management and the Whitetail Boot Camp talking about getting ready for the season.
All right, hunters, what we're going to do is it's time to start practicing. Fall's starting to come, and we got to get ready for season. The first thing guys should do when they get their bow out is inspect it. Make sure that the cables are all okay. You got to check if you have a peep. You got to make sure the rubber is not weather cracked and everything. In fact, it's just better to replace it every year. It ain't worth losing a big buck when your peep rubber breaks off on you at full draw. Now, the other thing is I want to give a few tips on what people do wrong before they even start to shoot. One thing is most people grab their bow wrong. Guys, good shooters will keep their hands open. You should try to palm your bow. When you grip it and you release your arrow, you're going to get torque and you're going to twist your arrow a little bit. So try to keep your hand open. Of course, you want a quality rest, okay? And then fingers versus release. Guys, I'm not trying to change the way you shoot, but some people are great finger shooters and some people ain't. Finger shooting, you have to do everything the same, and so do you with a release. But you can make more mistakes with a release and still get a clean release every time. Now, when I practice, I put all my broadheads on my bow. I tape it because I shoot with my rest on, my quiver on. Now guys, if you take your quiver off when you practice, your quiver should be off. If you leave it on like I do, I shoot with it on, and I leave 4 arrows, and then the 5th one is always in my string. So I practice just like I hunt. Now, the other thing is when you put your release on, how you tighten it up every time matters. So you got to make sure that it's in the same situation every time. You can change this and tighten it up, be behind the knuckle, above your wrist. You got to make sure everything is consistent. The other thing I want to point out is you want to use broadheads when you practice. You don't want to have just field points, so whatever you're going to hunt with is what you should sight in with. So I have arrows. I don't care what type of broadhead you use, but you want to practice with broadhead points. And they have these for targets. They don't open up like the regular ones. Many good ones on the market, but most all broadheads will sell a practice head. And the other thing we got to make sure is anchor points. This is the crucial part. Two things I think people make mistakes is they don't have a good grip on their bow right, and they're gripping their bow instead of keeping their hands open. And the other thing is you got to have several anchor points. So me, I anchor right between my old double chin right here, right in the old thing. It works great for me. And then I have a peep, and most people need a peep, but you want a hunter peep. You don't want that little one when it gets a little dust or it's raining out or misty, you can't hardly see. But guys, we need several anchor points, and the key is always to do the same thing, identical. Guys, I can take my bow out of the closet, ain't shot it since last December. I go out and throw 12 arrows yesterday, and they all were in the bullseye. I start 2 at 10 to make sure everything ain't crazy. They were right on. I move out to 20, I shot 5. I go out to 30, shoot 5, and right on the money. Now that I know my bow is still all set, and this was on the ground, everything like this, now I go up to my tree stand, and now I'm going to practice real world shooting.
Great information from Tony LaPratte. We've got all kinds of segments coming up. He's going to talk next week about what kind of clothing you should wear, look at your shooting spots, and he's somebody who walks the walk.
Yeah, I tell you what, Tim, and I've known him for a long time because he was a former student, but he's extremely passionate about what he does, and he lives and breathes this every single day.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Q1 Buck Poll. We hope you enjoyed the show. We've got a whole series coming at you. Next week, we're going to talk about measuring your deer, some of the different checkpoints where you can take your deer to get measured. You know, Mike, we've got an ATV to give away. We've got muzzle loaders, crossbows, a whole array of prizes. And the best part about it, it's free.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you got to thank those people that help us do what we love to do, and that's hunt. So get out there and shop with those merchants that help make the Big Buck Poll show what it is today.
All right, he's Mike Big Buck Hoffner. I'm Tim Hart. Anytime you're out in the woods and out and about, make sure you're safe. Thanks for watching this week's edition of the Q1 Buck Poll. Welcome back. We didn't even leave. Right. That's a deer laugh for us. All right, 2,
Okay, let's do it.
1.